We didn't know what was going to happen, but it was our only way to survive. I mean, to be 100% honest with you, if Shoozas would have focused only in the US, probably Shoozas wouldn't exist right now.
You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in. All right, listeners, welcome back to the latest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on Alberto Benhamu, the CEO and co-founder over at Shoozas. Alberto, welcome to the show.
Hey, Pat, how are you? Thanks for having me. Really happy to be here and try to share some important insights of our journey.
Absolutely. Can you start out by giving us a little bit of an overview? What is Shoozas?
So Shoozas is a shoe care brand. We focused on shoe care, developing and designing shoe care products. Our whole concept revolves around stress-free shoe care. Basically, what we're trying to build is a stress-free process where people can quickly, easily, and effectively clean their shoes without making a mess, without that common knowledge of that cleaning shoes is tedious. So we're trying to develop not only quality products, but also a cleaning process that makes it easy and stress-free to clean any type of shoes.
Can you give us a little bit of an overview? Like, how did the company get started?
Yes, of course. So me and my wife are originally from Caracas, Venezuela, in South America. We were born and raised there. When we were around 18, after high school, we left our country for the US. It's just economic and social crisis in our country make us leave. We were fortunate to have the opportunity to go to college in the United States. We went to college in Boston. After we graduated around 2017, we both worked corporate jobs for almost 5-6 years. And I worked in an engineering company. My wife worked in a publishing company. And we come from a family background where our family immigrated to Venezuela without nothing. And there's like an entrepreneurship spirit there as part of the family, right? So after a few years in corporate, we just found out that's not the lifestyle that we wanted. It has a lot of positive things, but it wasn't what we wanted for our lives. We wanted to work on something that's ours, to build it with all the risks that come with it, of course, but it's what we wanted to do. So in 2020, based on our passion for sneakers, we both play sports. I played soccer all my life. My wife is a runner. So we started thinking about what to start. To be honest, the idea wasn't really planned or thought through like in detail. And I'm being completely honest here. It just came up in our heads. It was like a light bulb that the lightened up. And we decided to go and develop a product related to shoes. We didn't want to get into shoes at first because, I don't know, we thought it was a really competitive and complex market to start with. So we focused on accessories for shoes and we started Shoozas. You may be wondering where the word Shoozas come from. It's a bit of a funny story. I personally tend to create nicknames for everything. And many years before we started the company, I used to call shoes Shoozas, like to friends, etc. Like, hey, nice Shoozas, or you gonna buy those Shoozas? Stuff like that. So when we were thinking on names for the company, we thought about several names before we started. And then, I don't know, just Shoozas came to mind. And when we heard it, we said that has to be the name. So that's a little bit of the journey on how the company started.
I love it, man. One of the many nice benefits that comes with creating that word for your brand name, you fortunately don't have to compete with a million other businesses or entities that are trying to rank in Google and all the other search engines for those same things. We dealt with that for version 1 of the business. Our original company name was Junto back in the day. And unfortunately, there are a lot of other entities that are very closely related to Junto. In Spanish, you have the word juntos, or together in English, which is Junto with one extra S on there. You have the Benjamin Franklin Junto Club as well. So we ran into a lot of issues where people would search for Junto and we didn't pop up anywhere on Google. So I love that you went the Shoozas route, took the creative nickname, and now you'll get to own that entire brand name. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's a good point because the word was completely available for our domain, for website, for social media. It was easy on that part.
Yeah, it always cracks me up when I see people that'll spend a ton of money on like a really popular domain name. They'll name their company after that because I get it. There's a lot of appeal to having a well-known word that people are looking for all the time. It's easier to remember, but I don't know. I think there's a little bit more character having that unique name. And also it doesn't cost you, $500,000, let's say, to buy the domain name up.
Yes, 100%.
So you and your wife start the business 2020. COVID is going on. It's a crazy time in the world for everyone. How did you end up generating, let's say, the first $1,000 in sales for the business?
We decided to go with the route of starting to sell on Amazon US. So back then when we started the business in 2020, yeah, as you correctly say, it was the middle of COVID. And we still worked on our full-time corporate jobs. We started this on the side. We really didn't know what was going to happen. So we started and we first started with a supplier we found through Alibaba in China. And from there till today, we've changed suppliers a couple times and the products have gone through several iterations. But when we first started, I remember perfectly, we didn't know anything about launching a product business, a consumer product business, and all it entails. We started ordering 100 units. We started with our signature kit, which is a shoe cleaning kit that includes a foam cleaner, a cleaning brush, a microfiber towel, and a cleaning mat. We started with that and we ordered 100 units. If you ask me today, I would never start a business ordering so little amount of units. Even if you don't know what's going to happen, you need a little bit more units to really understand the potential, right? But we ordered 100 units. China has that flexibility of minimum order quantities. It's a little bit more expensive, but they have that flexibility. So we brought them in. I remember we were living in our apartment in Somerville, Massachusetts at that time. And we stored the inventory inside our apartment. And we basically started learning how do we ship inventory to Amazon fulfillment centers to use Amazon FBA to fulfill our products. So we had to learn the whole Amazon portal, the listings. So we shipped out, I don't remember now exactly how many units we shipped out to Amazon to start with. I don't know, maybe 60, around there. And that's how we started selling. We posted the product, we started pushing it, ran a little bit of Amazon advertising ads, and I'm pretty sure that's how we made our first $1,000 of sales.
I love that you guys got started with Amazon FBA. It's such a great way to start a new business, especially if you're trying to gauge the demand before you've really invested a ton of resources. Can you give listeners just a quick overview, though? What is Amazon FBA?
So Amazon FBA is a service that Amazon offers for third-party sellers where you ship your inventory to Amazon fulfillment centers. And Amazon, obviously for a fee, they take care and handle all of the fulfillment to customers. So basically you ship them your inventory, and then what you got to worry about is having your listings optimized, having good campaigns that perform well, and Amazon takes care of the rest. They ship all sold units to the customers, and with Prime shipping, that's another benefit, that when you use FBA, you're paying for 2-day shipping with Prime, and they take care of all the returns, all the warehousing, etc. It's a great service. It's expensive. I'm not going to lie to you. It takes up a lot of margin, but with time, if you manage to optimize your products in a correct way, I think it's a great way to scale.
So 2020, you two launched the business. You start out with 100 units. You're keeping them in your apartment in Somerville. You gradually start selling them on Amazon FBA. Fast forward 5 years, and Shoozas is now available in 10 different countries in 5 different continents. Now, what happened? How did you grow so quickly in such a short time?
It's a good question. First of all, I want to start with it's impossible to really grow a startup and your own business, small business, without that entrepreneurial drive. I'm just saying it because there's so many obstacles, there's so many risks, there's so many ups and downs. There's days where you think the company's going to fail. There's days there's no cash flow. You got to ask for money, but there's also awesome days where sales are growing, where you feel you're on the top of the world. So it's really a roller coaster. And really to grow a business steadily, at least a small business and a business that's fairly new, you really have to have that passion, that drive thing that keeps you pushing. So we started in the US, as I mentioned, in 2020, Amazon US only. From there, we started trying to expand within the US, and we opened sales on Etsy.com and Walmart.com. Walmart online sales. But as the time went by, and when I say time, I mean, I don't know, a year and a half, we started realizing that competition in the US was extremely high and it was going to be very expensive to position ourselves or to grow in a way that we can steadily grow without having to invest a lot of money to start with. So what we started doing when we realized that was looking outside of the US. We started focusing on other countries where, again, we didn't know what was going to happen, but it was our only way to survive. I mean, to be 100% honest with you, if Shoozas would have focused only in the US, probably Shoozas wouldn't exist right now. So we started focusing on obviously the neighboring countries first, Canada. We sent inventory into Amazon Canada. We saw sales increase a little bit easier than the US, but still Canada it's a really competitive market until today. It's one of the most competitive, at least in our experience. And then what we did is we started looking at Mexico. So to do business in Mexico, you have to have your own established corporation in Mexico. You need to have your tax ID. You need the whole thing. You can't sell in Mexico with a US based business like you do in Canada or in other countries. So what we did to start testing the market was we have a friend from high school from Venezuela that lived in Mexico, and he had a business that basically what he did is he sold other people's brands through his own business structure. You didn't have to have your own business at first, and obviously he charged a fee for that, etc. So we started sending inventory to Mexico through his business, and he published our products on Amazon Mexico, another big platform in Mexico called Mercado Libre, and other platforms, online e-commerce platforms in Mexico. And after a year, I think it was a year, we realized Mexico had a lot of potential. Our products were selling well, even with higher prices, because selling through him meant pricing was going to be a little bit higher than us doing it direct. So we saw that Mexico had an enormous potential. So after we saw that, we decided to go ahead and start our paperwork to open our Mexican business and have everything we need to sell direct in Mexico. And that way we expanded to Mexico as well. Another market that we also saw with great potential was Australia. The reason being is it's very, very easy to sell in Australia if you have a US-based business. You can start selling with your US-based business in Australia. You just send inventory, open your Amazon Australia account. And the only thing you need to do is when you reach 75,000 Australian dollars in sales in a year, you have to register to pay taxes in Australia. But the reason I'm explaining all this is it was like a no-brainer, because the only thing that we had to do was just send inventory to Australia and see what happened. We didn't have to do any other paperwork. So we started sending inventory directly from our supplier in China to Australia, and it started moving a lot. And sales were picking up with a lot less investment than we had in the US. And then we spoke with a distributor in Europe that was interested in selling our products in Europe. That's how we are represented in the European Union as well, which also has a lot of traction and a lot of potential. So to summarize, we had no option but to expand outside the US. If you ask me now, it's why we survived. If you're a founder and you're starting a business, or you have a 1-year-old, 2-year-old business and you're struggling in the US, I strongly recommend you look at other markets outside of the United States. Sometimes it looks scary, but today it's extremely easy, fortunately, to expand outside of the US through e-commerce platforms. The processes are already there for you, the tools, the resources, and if you just put a little bit of work, you can expand outside of the United States and you can maybe see better results.
Struggling to get new customers? We're here to help. Hey, this is Pat, the host of Customer Growth Sessions. Our agency, Intergrowth, has been helping e-commerce brands like Bella Bridesmaids, Brevity, and JS Dental to get more customers online since 2016. Interested in seeing how we'd help you? Head over to intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary consultation with me. That's intergrowth.com/CGS. All right, back to the show. It's so fun hearing your perspective on this, because I think for me personally, and I'm sure for many listeners as well, the thought of international expansion it's a thought that crosses your mind once you hit like some pretty incredible revenue metrics. I think most people would assume, oh, we're far better off sticking to one market, taking up as much of the market as we can, and then look to do the same in the other market. But so much of your success has been driven from the early days by saying, hey, let's broaden our focus. Let's go after a lot of other markets. Within that, it sounds like Mexico is definitely a little bit more of a heavy lift in order to expand into the Mexican market. Obviously, you had a business contact that you were able to lean on to help you get things set up there. Am I correct in assuming, based on what you shared, that Canada and maybe Australia would be two of the first markets you'd recommend looking into beyond the US?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's two markets that are extremely easy to expand to, and based on your product or your product category and your competition, one of those markets or both markets could do great. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. Now, I want to mention on top of that, that Mexico has had an enormous growth on online commerce. They've invested, and outside foreign investment have come into the country to expand e-commerce. It's one of the countries that use online sales and online platforms the most. So it is a little bit tougher to get in, but just to share it with you, my experience, Mexico is our best market by far. We sell more in Mexico than probably our 2 second best markets combined. Just don't discard it. But yes, I agree with you, Pat. Canada and Australia are probably the easiest.
Now, and within that, I guess from deciding that someone's going to expand into a new market, into actually being able to sell things in that market, there's going to be variance from one country to the next. But is it feasible to say, like, hey, if you're looking to expand into country X, that you can have those new operations up and running 30 days? Is it like 3 months? Is it 3 years? Again, it's going to vary on the country, but what would you give to listeners as a good benchmark to have in the back of their mind?
Yeah, you well said. It depends on the country. If you expand to a country where the legal paperwork is not required to start, meaning you can sell with a US business in that country, I could say you could be up and running in really quickly, 2 to 3 months. And this is how we've done it, and I'll share it here. So in all the countries that we sell in, we use 3PLs. 3PLs are third-party logistics. It's a warehouse that stores your products and stores other people's products. So they charge for you for storage fees, pick and pack fees, etc. The correct way to sell on Amazon based on different factors isn't to sell your whole bulk of inventory directly from your supplier to Amazon, because Amazon wants to see their sell-through. And if you're sending thousands of units to Amazon directly, it's going to be more expensive. So we established 3PLs, which is really easy to do. You can search online for 3PLs in whatever country or region within that country that you want, and you interview a few options and go with the one that works for you. They set you up and running really quickly. You sign a contract, and then what you do is you send your inventory from your supplier, in my case it's China, to the 3PL in that country. When you receive that inventory into the 3PL, then you have the flexibility of shipping that inventory into Amazon FBA, Walmart, or any other direct-to-consumer sales that you have. It's really easy. You just open the market, set up your warehouse, ship your inventory to the warehouse, and you should be up and running. I honestly think if you do it and you focus, in 2 to 3 months, you can open a market.
Alberto, I find this so fun to hear because you make all of this process that's taken you years to perfect sound so simple. I'm sure there are going to be so many listeners that are like, oh yeah, we could expand into 3 markets overnight. This will be no problem at all. One of the things that I would imagine is very challenging is figuring out how to approach marketing to all these different markets. So, whether it's language barriers that you're dealing with, whether it is trying to figure out what sort of product positioning aligns with one market or the other. How do you typically go about approaching that? And how does your marketing change, let's say for like the US market versus, obviously, I would assume Mexico is probably going to be predominantly Spanish, but let's say like the US market and the Canadian market, where there's still going to be quite a bit of English being spoken as the primary language.
One important thing to mention there is, for now, we have a different strategy. Hopefully, we'll have a different strategy in the future. But for now, we focused a lot, or mostly, in e-commerce platforms such as Amazon, Walmart, Mercado Libre, and those platforms provide you an advertising console within the platform. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because it's totally different if you're advertising within those platforms versus advertising to gain traffic to your own website. So we have our own website, obviously, Shoozas.com. We build it on Shopify. And yes, we have traffic, but we haven't focused yet, and we haven't applied as many resources to advertising our website versus our e-commerce platforms, because most of the sales comes from the e-commerce platform. To answer your question, the advertising console, for example, on Amazon, you have an advertising console for each market that you sell in. This could be Australia, Canada, Mexico, US, Japan, European Union. The nice thing here is, for example, Amazon advertising in Mexico, it's a lot cheaper than Amazon advertising in the US, meaning you need a less investment to position your products and rank the keywords that you want to show up in the first page. You need much less investment in Mexico compared to the US. And yes, there's different languages. Keywords need to be in different languages, but there's so many tools out there. Just to name a few, there's one called Helium 10, another one called Jungle Scout, and there's others that really give you data on Amazon's data, meaning keyword traffic, consumer competitors' information and how much do they sell, which keywords are they using. So that's a good tool to use, at least at the beginning, to really understand how to create your advertising campaigns. So yes, it is different countries, but at the same time, when your advertising and your marketing is inside the e-commerce platform, it's not as challenging as if you're preparing a whole marketing campaign to drive traffic to your website or to your brand directly. That probably requires an agency, that probably requires a specific team member that focuses on marketing. So, focusing on the e-commerce platforms, it's really helpful on that aspect.
I'm really curious to ask about inventory management. I think this could probably be a whole episode in of itself. So I'll try and keep it high level for this one. But I would assume selling in 10 different countries, you mentioned you're working with a couple different 3PLs. I would assume it's really difficult to stay on top of making sure you have enough inventory, but also not too much inventory in all these different warehouses. How do you approach that process of determining when it's time to order, like when you need to, maybe when it's time to order in healthy timelines, when it's time to do expedited product orders? How do you approach that process?
I can say that's probably the most challenging aspect of the business. And we still struggle with it today. There's a few reasons why it's so complicated. And if you're a founder out there and you're struggling with inventory management, trust me, you're not alone. Extremely complicated. And it's even more complicated when you're a new business because you don't have data to rely on that tells you how many units you're going to sell, when you have to reorder. When you're a new business, you're basically discovering and exploring all that. So really, really tough to really calculate when and how to reorder. But having said that, you always have to work towards structuring and planning your inventory in the best way possible. Because not having inventory means you're wasting and losing sales every single day. And that's obviously the worst thing possible. So to be 100% honest with you, Pat, the first years and even today, still a little bit less than before, but we're still trying to optimize that part. We've been totally in the dark. We've been trying to make decisions based on what we see, based on what we think it's the best way to reorder inventory, but we haven't until even early this year is when we came up with a new tool, a new spreadsheet that's really helping us much more. And we also have a little bit more data, so that helps. But until now, let's just try to calculate how much we need and see if it's a good decision. As you probably correctly have thought, we've been several years where we're out of stock of our best-selling products. At the beginning, we were like months without product until all the production cycle. Then it had to ship from China to the destination country. So we weren't at all organized in that aspect. So it's tough. I don't know how else to call it, but a few things to point out as important insights is try to build yourself a spreadsheet where you track your monthly sales volume and then try to calculate it, how much time it takes from when you put an order with your supplier until it reaches your country of destination. And then you just try to start calculating how much time before you need to place an order and how many units you need to have before you place that order. So that's a little bit of how we're doing it right now. It's also a little bit complex because if you order too much inventory as a small business, it can severely affect your cash flow because as a small business, cash is extremely precious. You need it to take care of all your overhead expenses, your recurring expenses. So if you order too much inventory, you're going to end up with less cash and a lot of inventory that you don't know what to do with, probably. So The way we try to at least ourselves calculate is we try to calculate inventory orders every 4 to 5 months. That way we spend a specific amount of cash on inventory, but we try to recycle it. So when it sells, we purchase more, and we try to do it by 4 or 5 month increments so that we can control that cash flow aspect. So to summarize this point, Pat, and to founders out there struggling with inventory management, it is very tough, but you always got to work hard to try to organize that process, because at the end of the day, it's crucial for your business. If you don't have inventory, you cannot sell. And if you don't sell, well, you don't have a business. So try to analyze your metrics, try to analyze your sales volumes, try to analyze supply chain with your supplier, and try to organize those time frames and try to get better as you go.
Tell me if this sounds like you. You've started scaling the business through PPC channels like Facebook, but now it eats up 80% of your marketing budget, and ad costs continue to rise, pushing your margins down more and more every month. PPC is great for scaling your business in the early stages. The issue is PPC is like a faucet. As soon as you stop spending money, the sales instantly go away. So rather than paying per customer, we work with brands to build a steady stream of new customers through SEO. Those customers continue to flow for years after brands stop working with us. Interested in hearing more? Reach out to us directly at intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary strategy session with our team.
And for listeners, obviously that in of itself, you could have an entire master's course in school about inventory management and still not be an expert on the space. One of the many points Alberto touched on is the idea of how if you order too much inventory, it can destroy your cash flow. For those who want to learn more about giving themselves a little bit of buffer there, we interviewed Laura from Love and Fit last week on the podcast. Give that episode a listen. Laura shared a lot of great insights about, I guess, what I would describe as some alternative ways that you can approach financing the business through credit cards and some other means. A lot of great ideas that you can look to for inspiration in there. But Alberto, that's fascinating to hear. So it sounds like to date, what I'm hearing is that you've been really relying on Excel docs / Google Sheets. It sounds like you haven't found an inventory forecasting type tool that you really like at this point. Am I correct in that?
Yes, Pat, that's a really good point. I know for a fact they're out there. We're definitely not the first person struggling with this. So I'm 100% sure there's good software out there. However, after looking at some of them, I felt right now at the point that we're in, we need flexibility in terms of what we want to see. So when you go with a software, you normally have to stick with what they show you, what you input into the software. But to really learn the process, we needed to live it and go through it. We need flexibility. We need to create a spreadsheet that shows us exactly what's important to us and to our business, and try to customize it as much as possible to our needs. Every business is different, and we're not at a point where, as I said before, we have enormous amounts of data that we can just plug into a software and we could be good with that. Right now, we're at a point where we need to be as meticulous as possible and as flexible as possible for a spreadsheet that we build gives us the data that we need to see. That's at least our experience.
I'm coming from a very different business sector, being in the service space, but I see the exact same thing for our business. Our business is built on the foundation of Google Sheets and Excel because it's so nice having that malleability. There's a lot of tools out there that are phenomenal at what they do, but to your point, you can run into all these different constraints. Sometimes it's more straightforward to just build out kind of like a tool on your own and be able to customize it at a moment's notice. And whether it's tracking inventory, whether it's tracking cash flow. So I'm right there with you. We have a lot of our tools, quote unquote, are just really fancy Google Sheets.
Yes. People tend to think that if you use Google Sheets or Excel, you're like a mom and pop shop and you're not professional. But I think that's totally wrong. I think that being able to build something that your business needs and allows it to grow, it's an amazing thing. And if you can do that in Excel without having to spend money on software, well, what better thing than that? And I was a victim of this mentality as well when I started. When you start a business, you try to think of it as a Fortune 500 business, and you try to look professional, and you try to look at all the fancy tools. And I'm sure a lot of people are victim to that. But after a few years in building our company, I can definitely share with other founders out there that always try to keep it simple. I learned in my corporate job, there's this phrase or this acronym that's KISS, KISS, keep it stupid simple. And it really resonated a lot as we grew our business, because if you save money at the beginning, you're going to have a lot of more potential to grow as you go. And if you can save money on tool, I'm not saying create all the tools by yourself. That's impossible. We ourselves use so many different software for different things, but don't use things that you don't need. Don't buy software that's a lot more complex and a lot more sophisticated than you need. Try to build the things that your business needs and go step by step. You can grow a business in 2, 3, 5 years. You got to be patient. You got to give it time, and then you'll look professional when you make it. But try to use the things that you need. That's a recommendation that I can give to other founders out there.
Alberto, this has been amazing. Can you give us a little bit of an inside look? What do you have in store for the business in 2025?
Yeah. So Pat, real quick before we jump onto that. So if any of your listeners, Pat, are interested in a tool that could help them with that inventory management challenge, we're 100% open and sharing with them the tool that we build, the spreadsheet that we use, the latest one. So I just wanted to mention that. Just keep it in mind. If anyone needs it or wants to try it out, we're totally open in sharing it. They can reach to me via email. I'll share with you my email after the podcast, and you can share with your listeners.
That would be amazing.
We'll be glad. It'll be a pleasure for us to help out and share that with them.
Well, let's talk about what's in store for the business for 2025. What are you most excited about?
Yeah, so cool thing, actually in January, we launched another market, Japan. We started selling on Amazon Japan as we become familiar with international expansion, and Japan is the third or fourth largest economy in the world. It has an enormous potential. It has a thriving fashion and street fashion industry. So one of our largest competitors is really well positioned there in Japan. So, well, we started offering Shoozas in Japan. That was pretty exciting. It sounds, crazy to know you're selling in Japan. We'll see. We're working hard to making it grow. It's not easy. Again, Japan's a really competitive country. It's an expensive country. So we'll see. We'll continue working on that. So for 2025, Pat, we have a lot of exciting things coming up. We're developing, and the plan is to launch a few new products to strengthen the product line and to attend other shoe cleaning needs. We're launching a hat care kit for hat cleaning. It might sound impressive, but there's a lot of people that wants to take care of their hats, and they have collection of hats. We're launching soon a hat care kit. We're launching a leather wax, a leather balm to protect, preserve, and restore leather goods, not only shoes, but furniture, cars, bags, etc. So we're trying to expand the product line this year to make it stronger. And this is all for Shoozas. Now, at the same time, we're developing a cool project where we're launching another shoe care line, another shoe care brand for a different type of audience in Mexico. It will start only in Mexico, probably being released in April of this year. We're really excited for that. So we're building ourselves a business where we develop and sell and distribute many brands under it. So we're calling this mother company Benduo Brands. Benduo is our business name, legal business name. It comes from my last name and my wife's last name, which they both start with Ben. So that's where it came from, Benduo. So Benduo Brands will be like the mother company, and under it, we're planning to develop and launch brands for not only, doesn't have to only be for shoe care. For now, we're really focused on that category, but we'll see what comes up in the future. So it's going to be a very important year for us, where the company is more solid, it has more structure, but with that comes other challenges. But the most important thing is try to enjoy it. Try to enjoy the roller coaster.
For listeners that want to get in touch with you or maybe want to buy Shoozas, first, what's the best way for them to contact you?
So they can definitely shoot me an email. I think that's the best way. It's alberto@benduobrands.com. I'll share with you, Pat, and you can also share with them. They can contact me through there. They can send us a message through our website, shoozas.com, or LinkedIn. There's many different ways you can reach us, and we'll definitely respond and try to help out.
And listeners, check out the show notes. We'll have links to all these different ways to get in touch with Alberto, to learn about Shoozas, and much more. Well, once again, listeners, this is Alberto Benhamu, the CEO and founder over at Shoozas. Alberto, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.